opportunity to say welcome, welcome, welcome. It is a pleasure that you came out today, and not only today, but it's raining outside and you didn't let the rain stop you, so I am much appreciated. Before we get started, just want to mention a couple of things. On your table, you have evaluation forms, and if you could please fill those out and give them back to me at the end of the day. This is how we prepare for future workshops from your feedback to us. Second, if you are an educator and you need a professional development hours, our lovely colleague Becky Ballard will give you that at the end of the symposium as well. Also, you have the blue tickets. We're going to give a couple of t-shirts away from the Latimer House, and if your ticket is called, you just go back to that table back there and they'll get you the appropriate size. And the lady waving her hand, she's the one you would see to get that. Again, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and we're going to follow the program as it is listed.
Good morning, everyone. Thank y'all so much for coming out on this rainy day. We drove all the way from Hope, Arkansas, but we could not miss this. Tiana has done an amazing job putting this together. Can we just clap our hands for her this morning? I am not one that is very big on titles, so as you're reading this flyer, I am Arnetta Bradford. It does tell you who I am. I am with the Black History Commission. I am the chair, but I do want to recognize our past chair, Mr. and Dr. Hardgrove, that is sitting right here to my right. Can y'all clap your hands for him? Alrighty, so again, thank y'all so much and welcome, and thank you for coming. And I am going to move right on over to the next task that I have, which I find to be a very easy task, and that is to introduce someone that it is a native from my very own city, and that is Hope, Arkansas. So I am going to read a little portfolio about her, but can I just say, Miss Linda is, if you know Miss Linda, you know Miss Linda, right? I said if you know Miss Linda, you know Miss Linda, right? Yeah. Alrighty, so Miss Linda Poindexter Chesterfield is a native of Hope, Arkansas. She has been a trailblazer in education, becoming the first African-American graduate of Hendrix College. She was the first African-American woman president of her state and local union, and the first teacher member of Little Rock School District. She was a 20-year member of the General Assembly and chaired several committees and sponsored legislation in the House and Senate. But she says her most important and satisfying job was that of a teacher. She's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated, the AEA and NEA, the NAACP, the AAUW, and the Black History Commission. Oh Lord, I almost got tired tongue real quick. She's happily married to Mr. Emory Chesterfield. Y'all better clap y'all hands for Mr. Emory. We love you too, Mr. Emory. We're not gonna leave you out. And they attend the First Missionary Baptist Church. If y'all will join me in giving her a round of applause as she comes to the stage.
Let's give my homegirl a round of applause. Dr. Benjamin Mays said, "It must be borne in mind that the tragedy in life does not lie in failing to reach your goal. The tragedy lies in having no goal to reach. It is not a calamity to die with dreams unfulfilled, but it is a calamity not to dream. It is not a disaster to fail to capture your ideal. Oh, but it is a disaster to have no ideal to capture. It is not a disgrace to fail to reach the stars, Oh, but it is a disgrace to have no star to reach for. Not failure, but low aim is sin. And we are here today to aim high in keeping the history of African Americans, not only in Arkansas, but across this country, very much alive and well. And so it is my honor to be here this morning and to talk to you briefly about a church founded in 1845 by a slave named Wilson Brown. 15 years before the Civil War began, he went to a slave master named Fields and asked him to form a church. He could already read. He was a carpenter. And all of this is remarkable. Y'all are sitting here as if that's not remarkable. This is 1845 when it was against the law to teach black folks how to read. And so it was very remarkable that this man knew how to read and had the audacity to go to a slave owner and say, I don't want to worship with the white folks anymore. I want to form my own church. Because when blacks and whites worshiped, they were already in two separate parts of the church. Whites were usually on the ground floor, and if there was a balcony, as here, blacks would sit in the balcony. And so it was rather audacious for this slave to approach his master and say, I want to form a church. And it was even more amazing when the slave master said, yes. And so in 1845, in April of 1845, the first Missionary Baptist Church was formed. It was formed first at the corner. We began celebrating at the corner of 10th and Spring Street here in Little Rock, Arkansas. Several years later, the church had grown so much that it came to their mind about 20 years later that we need to find or form a bigger church. Subsequently, about 142 years ago, a church was built at the corner of 7th and Gaines Street here in Little Rock, Arkansas, over 142 years ago. And that church still stands today. It is right across from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Many of you pass by it every day and pay absolutely no attention to it. But it is the first Missionary Baptist Church formed for African Americans in the state of Arkansas. In the back of that church is a parsonage, and both of them have significance historically. They are both, First Baptist became a part of the National Registry of Historic Places in 1983. Let me tell you a little bit about the people who have been there over the years. I'm a proud member. I'm a member of the Deaconess Board, and I am chair of the Mission Society there. But I am so excited about it because in the early part of the 1900s, Booker T. Washington came to our church to speak. Little old Little Rock, Arkansas. I always think about Hope. Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois were the two most important figures at the turn of the 20th century in the history of this country. They had a little war going on. But it was Booker T. Washington who helped to build more African American schools for young people trying to learn to read across this state because he had a friendship with Julius Rosenwald, CEO of Sears. And so you have Rosenwald schools that grew up across the South, but not just because Rosenwald thought of them. It was because of the historic significance and the respect that people had for Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington graced our sanctuary. And then in 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came to the First Missionary Baptist Church to teach our 118th church anniversary. We still have, thanks to you, a restoration of the Bible, thanks to the Black History Commission, a restoration of the Bible from which Dr. King preached. When you walk into the alcove, you can see it, and we also have the pulpit from which he preached. What is that noise? Is it me? Are y'all hearing that knocking sound? What is causing that? Is it I? Oh, it's the microphone? Okay, I'll just go on then. All right. Y'all don't mind if I just go on, right? 1963 is an especially important time in the history of African Americans. In 1963, in April, Dr. King was in the Birmingham jail. He left the Birmingham jail shortly thereafter and preached our anniversary in April of 1963 as well. And then in August of 1963, he delivered the I Have a Dream speech. I wondered when I came there, and they kept talking about, well, you know, Dr. King preached our anniversary, and I was going, why would he come to Little Rock, Arkansas, the First Missionary Baptist Church? Dr. Roland Smith, who was our pastor at that time, who came in 1947, and we've only had 14 pastors since 1845, which is rather remarkable. Rather remarkable. We're having our 14th pastor now. Dr. Roland Smith and Dr. King were friends. They had helped to form the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He was a Morehouse man. Roland Smith was a Morehouse man. And so that's where the relationship came. Roland Smith had written a letter of recommendation earlier for Dr. King to achieve a position within the Baptist Convention. So that's where that's how that happened. And then subsequently, when Bill Clinton announced for president, First Missionary Baptist Church. When Frank Scott Jr. announced for mayor, First Missionary Baptist Church. Asa Hutchinson has been to the First Missionary Baptist Church. The president emeritus at that time of Morehouse College, Dr. Benjamin Mays, whom I quoted earlier today, that is his quote, came to First Missionary Baptist Church. We are a historic building, celebrating 180 years of existence. We celebrated that this year. Once again, we had a governor come and grace our stage. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders delivered remarks at our 180th anniversary. We have been and continue to be a part of this community. It was Dr. Smith and those who followed him who confronted Orville Faubus about his segregationist policies. The Arsenic, Arkansas Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee members left our church and went to Woolworth to desegregate the counters there. We are alive, we are well, and we invite you, come and visit us, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you. Yes, sir. He did.
Was running for president.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. It's been, you know, we now have these huge churches, these big box churches, but it was the first mega church, if you will, in this state. It is a Gothic revival church and formed and built by people right out of slavery. We're now in the process of trying to restore and revitalize that church. That's why we're having fundraisers. Every time we look up, we want to have the fundraiser because it deserves to be preserved. Not because I'm a member, but because of the historic significance of this church in this community. And so on the 180th, we just reached out to everybody we could. Please join us. Help us to make sure that we can restore it. When we were getting the roof repaired, we found that the masonry work was in disrepair as well. And so there are only two architects that are licensed to restore historic buildings in the state of Arkansas. We got to do better than that. We got to do better than that. But he went in to restore the roof and said we can't do the roof because the masonry work needs to be redone. And when he looked at the masonry work, he was amazed because he'd never seen anything like it. We're talking about 142-year-old masonry work. Can you imagine how much different it is today? So we're still in that process. We want to restore the roof. We invite all donations. I'm not ashamed to say that because it's not ours. It's all of ours, and it deserves to be restored. Other questions? Yes, sir. You? Yes, sir. The handsome gentleman with the hand up. Yes, sir.
Can you explain how First Missionary survived urban renewal, but yet Big Bethel relocated? I know it's not on the 9th Street corridor, but it's very close. And just the contrast, I mean, you see First Missionary, but now you see a glass shop instead of Big Bethel.
Yes. Urban renewal was anything but renewing. Urban renewal was the destruction of the heart of the black community across this country.
No.
And we are lucky to have, our church was not impacted. We're talking about a church that has stained glass windows that are over 100 years old, an organ that's over 100 years old, And it is rather amazing that this building still stands. And let me give a shout out to Mike Huckabee, because he gave us the money when this building was burned to restore it. I got to give a shout out to Asa Hutchinson, who also came to our church, but for working with Senator Elliott and me to make sure that we purchased the building next door, which is original. But they deliberately put 630 through the heart of the black community, where we had our own hotels, where we had taxi stands, where we had nightclubs, and it was the hub of the city, where we had businesses, and it was deliberately cut into 9th Street. This was left, flag and banner left. We're a couple of blocks, just a block or two over. We remain. I don't understand what the rationale was. I wasn't involved, but I just got in Little Rock when this was happening, and they did not want people to be able to see 9th Street as it was constructed from the freeway. And I heard that conversation, and I remember people like Lottie Shackelford, who were more involved than I, trying to fight that. But that is what the result was. And it's a shame, because Big Bethel should have been maintained. And by the way, there are several churches that did come out of First Missionary Baptist Church. Emmanuel Baptist Church grew out of that. Mount Pleasant Baptist Church grew out of it. The founder of the Church of God in Christ walked out of our church and headed south to the corner of 8th and Gaines, and that is, we have a marker there, historic marker. That is where the Church of God in Christ's vision was first had, right out of that church. So we've had a lot of this, and Reverend Bishop Rudolph came to preach, various pastors, and celebrating. We wanted to have pastors and celebrations with the individuals, individual churches that grew out of ours, so we did that. But every question you ask clicked something in my mind. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. First says Reconstruction. Mm-hmm. He and Dr. Brown. Mm-hmm. Well, and we almost hit some of that this time in North Little Rock. I have been an advocate of the 30 crossing, because I represent both sides of the river. And I believe that you facilitate travel between, and it's an interstate, not an intrastate, as people seem to think it was. But we had to fight to make sure that we had access that would allow people to be able to go to one of the oldest black businesses in this state, and that's Lindsay's Barbecue. Because for a while we were not going to have that access, and so being a member of the legislature, I had a little bit more clout, and was able to say we're going to be able to have an exit that allows people to go to Lindsay's Barbecue. Might not have mattered to anybody else, but it mattered to me. And to go to historic places like Dark Hollow and Dixie, and to see Scipio Africanus Jones, the marker that marks the high school, which was the all-black school in North Little Rock. And I invite you all who don't know as much about Dunbar as you need to, please learn more. That's not my role here, but my role as an old history teacher is to say love your history. But loving it is not enough. We've got to preserve it. And with that, thank you so very much. I appreciate you.
Yeah,